making choices about how we interact with these algorithms and these programs and what media we focus on and pay attention to can really help to start to diffuse some of the anger and the anxiety that we all feel, which will then enable us to maybe start to have some difficult conversations with some people that we might not normally have conversations with.
Mental health, the tendency to be suicidal, all these things, they've found that isolation is the key thing that drives people to have drug addictions, that drives people to become suicidal, this sense of isolation. And so, yeah, community is the thing that keeps people the healthiest. And like the rats, if they were isolated, they would push that button for the drug like until they died. But if they were in community, they were not even interested in pushing that button. Right. So that's, I think a lot of people forget that community is like the most important thing. We're kind of losing that. Like since pandemic,
oh God, yes.
A lot of people
even
are
before
lonelier than they've ever been. And like people are buried on their phones all day instead of interacting face to face.
So, it's funny you bring that up. So, to that point, like, yeah, it's when it comes to like all of us being isolated, the pandemic definitely accelerated it for a lot of people. But I mentioned earlier that I opted out of Facebook 08, 09, 10. I don't know, time moves fast on the internet. But it was fairly early when I decided I didn't want anything to do with it because there were very dear friends of mine that it seemed like because it was this new shiny thing, everybody started spending all their time online, right? And I had friends, we were close, cared about each other. I saw with multiple people that it was becoming the substitute for getting together and breaking bread. It was becoming the substitute for going to the beach or going for a hike. It became the substitute for personal human interaction. It was a pattern that I started to notice with many friends. Pokes, public highs, maybe even sending messages back and forth on DMs.
But actually getting together.
It just stopped happening. And I would say, somebody could say, oh, well, maybe you were the weirdo, but I've talked to many other friends who had very similar experiences around that same time. And once we stopped hanging out face to face with one another, and as humans, all of us collectively as a nation, increasingly our experiences were online, which means that increasingly our experiences became dictated by the algorithm, Gesundheit. Perfect example. One of my coworkers, he's also really into cars like me. And I only joined Facebook because of my work and it kind of helps with communication there. Posts that he posted will pop up like 2 weeks later in my feed. And then there are other posts that he'll post and I'll never see. And he'll ask, did you see that one? And I'm like, no, I never saw that one. And so the algorithm, even within our friends and family, is intervening in what we see and we know and we hear. Which means it's also doing that. I mean, on YouTube, I have several different creators that I subscribe to. And I don't want to turn on every notification for every creator because your phone will blow up constantly. But when I log in to my feed, sometimes certain creators are right there at the top of it. Other times they will post, they've gone a month or two without seeing a notification or a creator's new upload appearing in the feed. So at the end of the day, our media ecosystems are broken and feeding us hate and rage bait. Then our personal ecosystems on our social media are being curated and selectively feeding us information and then hiding from us or just omitting certain aspects of our friends' lives and things that we're interested in. And it's just something that, like, it's one of these things that, like, I don't know what the answer is other than deleting all your social media and going out and touching grass more. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things that, like, the more we are aware of it, the more, and the, like, daily being conscious, making choices about how we interact with these algorithms and these programs and what media we focus on and pay attention to, can really help to start to diffuse some of the anger and the anxiety that we all feel, which will then enable us to maybe start to have some difficult conversations with some people that we might not normally have conversations with, which then potentially leads to us realizing how much common ground that we all have with each other, regardless of where you are on the political or economic spectrum, which then leads to us challenging our leadership and our politicians and maybe choosing better ones, which then leads to better legislation and better laws and healthier relationships and a better country. Like, it's all these, everybody's like, what's the solution? The solution is your personal life, every fucking choice you make, with what you choose to engage with, what you choose to fill your heart and your mind with, how much compassion you have, how you're connecting with your family members, and if you're being there for them, because every one of us need people to check up on us every once in a while, and sometimes we all need to be left alone. But, like, you start putting all of this together, and if enough of us start to do that, we create communities where we can bring more people in, and this starts to build like a snowball, and maybe 10 years from now, we can start to take our country back. We can have that Star Trek future, that the technology is there, the thinkers are there, the ideas are there. It's just not enough people are listening to them. Not enough people are taking them seriously because they're too worried about gender pronouns and Bud Light and non-existent, threats to
Dumb stuff.
democracy.
Yeah. I just want to say, like, to what you were talking about, how I realized this weekend that I know more about the lives of people whose content I'm watching online, or people in the characters in the shows that I've been watching lately on TV, that I know lately about the lives of my own friends. And that was a wake-up call for me. I was like, oh, dang. And the amount of time that people are spending on their phones and consuming content online is, like, directly proportional to the lowering of people's mental health, the increase in people's level of rage.
Yep.
And that the antidote for that is actually getting together with other human beings in person. It's like the antidote to all of the epidemics that are going on right now, like the loneliness epidemic and the rage epidemic and the division epidemic, and the fact that politicians are basically taking over people's lives with this, having all these conversations about a lot of things that at the end of the day don't really matter, or that you can't personally control, but you can control your activities and what's going on in your immediate circle. And the more I think we can focus back on that, people are just going to be a lot happier, healthier, more in control of their own lives.
100%. The biggest antidote to this inhumane and digital world, which is, as we see it, full of rage and division and negativity and mental health and all this stuff, the biggest antidote to all of that, the joke is touch grass, but it's going outside, it's connecting with people. We are social beings, and we have lost that connection, and we're seeing where it gets us. As you said, it's like more about the content creators you watch and the TV shows, their personal lives, than you do about some people in your own lives. Now, extrapolate that or take that out across the whole country, and people whose lives you aren't even aware of, like the guy who lives in Lincoln, Nebraska, that gets into the grain silos to maintain them. Like, I mean, imagine. Like, I mean, I have spent the night in a farmhouse in Idaho that did not have electricity. Like, and seeing the way their day was, and what the that life was. That still exists in America today. Like, so, you don't know how much you don't know. And the more you can actually connect with human beings, the more you increase your likelihood of learning something new and making your world bigger and making your soul richer and finding a connection you didn't know exist, or finding hope where you didn't have any before. Because I can tell you right now, there's not that much hope in here.
Right?
And any hope you find in here has to happen out there, right? The ideas are here, but the rubber hits the road out there when we roll up our sleeves, when we do the work, and we break bread, and we drink a beer, and we talk about how we're going to pick up that shovel and make that dream come true.
Yes.